Everyone dedicates a lot of time to their schoolwork, to their social life, to activities going on campus. And you kind of forget that there's this whole world around us, even if it might just be down Com Ave in Brighton. And you just have to keep in mind that the way you grew up and the way that you live isn't how most people or many people live.
So I think it's important to understand that this isn't just pat yourself on the back, hugs and smiles, thumbs up, community service, I'm doing good, I'm going to change the world. It's building communities, it's building relationships, it's questioning who we are and why the world is the way it is. And I think we have to remember that the challenge it issues to each of us in understanding the small picture and the big picture, but also not just accepting things as they are if there's something we see that isn't right. I mean, if it's someone on the street asking for change and people are ignoring this person, you can change that by doing something yourself.
I feel exceptionally lucky to have been given the privileges that I have, and it's not by virtue of anything that I've done. I was born into privilege that a lot of these people can't even imagine being born into. And I also was born in a country where women have fantastic access to education and where, women are encouraged to be anything or do anything. It's really, really important to get out of that BC bubble and see that in this city, not everyone is like the people at BC.
I just always understood my spirituality through other people, like my interactions with other people. That was like my idea, and I just feel like I'm trying to live that, And so like we owe that. We owe that to the community. We owe that to ourselves. I think if we were to just stay on campus, like we'd be selling ourselves short.
Every week, a subway train takes these students away from the safety and comforts of their lives at Boston College and heads east into the city of Boston. While many of their classmates are locked away in their rooms studying for the next day's exam or getting ready for a night out with friends, these student volunteers are giving 4 hours once a week to tutor adult GED and ESL students. 4 blocks from the Alston Street stop is the Jackson Man Elementary School, where the volunteers will find older students eagerly awaiting their arrival and assistance. Dory Nord, one of the teachers for the Jackson Man Adult Education Program, explains the importance of the volunteers.
And they're always willing to just jump in and see if somebody is struggling with something and needs help. Sometimes we might pull someone out of the class to work on something individually. Sometimes we might do like 3 or 4 groups within the classroom, each working on a different area. And it's just great. Everybody gets attention that way, and it doesn't make me spread as thin. The way that I structure class depends upon having the volunteers, and if I didn't have them, I'd have to do things a lot differently.
All 4 volunteers belong to the BC Service Organization for Boston, which sends students to daycare centers, hospitals, prisons, homeless shelters, and Jackson Man. A little over 20 volunteer each week for the Jackson Man program.
I think it's a shame to not take that education that we've received, take those opportunities, and kind of pay it forward a little bit and pass it on to someone else.
The challenge of justice drew all the volunteers into the program, but for Eddie Hernandez Perez, spending all 3 years at Jackson Man was personal.
My parents immigrated here from Mexico in the late 70s, and they actually met in an English class, exactly like this. When I'm here and I see these people struggling, it's not just like me, almighty Boston College student sharing my knowledge with them. It's me seeing my parents in them, So that's a huge part. That's why I've stayed with For Boston, or specifically with Jackson Man for so long.
The volunteers all understand how important their work is for the program.
A lot of us take so much for granted, and these people, in my experience, they take very little for granted. A lot of these people were teachers or, had jobs in business sector, something like that, and yet they come here and work what we might consider a more menial job because there's more opportunity here and because they're actually making more as, say, a busboy or someone working in a cafe here than they were making as a teacher in their home country. I think that we have a sense of responsibility to address that inequality, and that's something that I've really learned being at Jackson Man.
Different, it's no stereotypes. And,
You're saying that
It's more like getting them into conversations and not just, you know, teaching them the basic. Every week is something useful, you know, like we've been talking about politics lately. That's, you know, important. We help them with their citizenship, getting ready for citizenship tests. It's not just helping them with their English per se, it's like helping them be better, like integrate into the community.
For the BC students, it's not just about teaching the adults at Jackson Man, but also learning from those they're called to teach.
Considering that I'm learning a foreign language, I'm learning Spanish. So I had a conversation with one of the students who's from Guatemala, and we were having conversation about kind of comparing learning English with learning Spanish, since we're kind of both going through the same thing from the opposite sides.
Seeing people at placements like Jackson Man is so important for my education and learning about what's going on in the world. I can learn so much more from a conversation or a class at Jackson Man than I can about an academic book about immigration reform in the United States. I think the personal experiences at placements like Jackson Man are the most important part of my education.
The volunteers are enlivened by the work they do, but the job is not always an easy one, and they sometimes find themselves questioning the impact of their work.
Sometimes I'm not sure about what exactly we're supposed to work on. Sometimes we used to say, here's an in-class test. You can kind of do it on your own or work together with people. But some people are working on math, some people are working one-on-one with journal entries. So I think what you guys have said kind of before about sometimes the curriculum isn't totally clear, I think that's kind of coming out.
And I think that sometimes it can be really frustrating because we're trying to teach these people algebra and some of them don't possess basic math skills, but they're all in the same classroom. So we can't really have one person doing a division worksheet, another person doing algebra, but on the other hand, how are you supposed to understand an algebra worksheet? Well, one thing that I try to do is break it down. Anything that they're working on, I try to break it down into a series of logical steps or kind of like rules, because in terms of passing the test, it doesn't matter so much that you understand the theory behind it as that you understand how to do it.
At first it was awkward to be like teaching or to kind of be telling adults that many of them have immigrated from other countries. Like, they face a lot of challenges in their life, and I feel like they should be teaching me. It's just awkward to feel that sense of authority when you're teaching them.
It can be awkward. Sometimes I don't feel like I have or should have any amount of authority, kind of being like, hey, do this homework assignment, or let's do this. I kind of want to be on the receiving end of that because of the age difference and the life experience difference. But that's overcome by the positive, encouraging environment and people working together. So there is an awkward tension, but we work through it.
I mean, another challenge is that it's a really wide range of abilities and backgrounds. You know, countries that they've come from, perhaps like women don't have the same access to an education there, and then coming here, so like you're putting all of those different levels into one room and trying to teach them with limited time, limited money, and just in general limited resources.
The biggest challenge is, I think, just getting students to like get out, just kind of pushing them out of their comfort zone. Honestly, I don't think it's not tough what we do, and I think that's important. You know, it's not like it's not backbreaking work. It's not so much that we're, you know, breaking our backs here. It's our presence that's important.
And their presence has made a difference according to the GED students who they teach.
I have a vocational tech. I go to Medicine Park High, so I got a school, half day of school and half day of work, and I need the money, so I just drop out and I start working full time. Then later I realized 5-10 years later that the job this day now, you need at least a diploma to get in if you want a good job. And now that I'm old and I don't want to wait until I'm 60 getting my GED, I'd be dead already. The BC student is helping me a lot because they could spend one-on-one with me with the subject that I'm not good at, which is math. I took the math twice already and I flunked twice, and my next one is January. I hope I'm doing good on that. And every time they come over, I learn more and more from them because it's one-to-one.
Well, the challenging part is like the mathematics, because basically the maths
that we are getting now, I did not remember doing that. Well, I didn't really reach high school level. I went to like, what would you say now? It's more than elementary. It would be more like a junior secondary school. But they are good, they are good, they are helping me. And sometimes I don't understand, but you know, they are good, they are the best. When I see the teachers coming, I feel good. I feel good. I don't think I'd be far ahead without them. They are really good.
I've been out of school for 6 years almost, or more maybe. And you know, every time I come to class, I get happy, you know, when I see them. Because, I don't know, I just feel like when they're there, I get to learn more quicker.
Without them, we're gonna not even getting that better. We're gonna stay this class or this whole school for 5-10 years. With them, at least we learn quicker and advance and do whatever you have to do with your life when you pass the GED.
Sam's story is one of many at Jackson Man, and all of the students were thankful for the volunteers who come every week. Kelly remembers one particular day when a student came to thank her.
Last year, I did a day of service in Brighton on Halloween, helping kids cross the street or whatever for trick-or-treating. And I was standing outside this little cafe, and one of the students from the class that I was teaching came out of the cafe, and he was like, "Oh my God, how are you? Like, it's so good to see you. Like, here, do you want something? Let me get you a coffee. Let me buy you something. Let me get you a drink, like, whatever." And, you know, it was just, like, such enthusiasm, like we were old friends, and I felt like, how have I made like an impact on your life that you would go out of your way like that for me? I give up a few hours of homework, but they might give up an evening of work, you know, which is income to support their families, or time with their kids, or whatever, to try to, you know, get that opportunity. So that's why I say that it kind of embarrasses me sometimes.
It's definitely a reciprocal relationship. I might have some skills in English grammar and writing, or maybe math, or even understanding of the political system in the United States. And I provide that, and we work together. But a lot of the students in the classrooms have a lot of different life experiences that, you know, educate me or educate us as volunteers.
So if I have a paper due, you know, I see that as, I realize that that is a privilege, you know. Yeah, it stresses you out, whatever, project, whatever, you know. You have to realize that it's a privilege that you're not worrying about your boss discriminating against you because you're, you know, because you don't speak English well. So I see this placement as my balancing act, you know, and not to put it in like a, like that's not why I come here. I come here because I want to help people, but it you know, it keeps me level-headed, keeps my mind right.
I feel like this isn't like an extraordinary thing. I think people should want to give some of their time without having to get paid for it, because I feel like, as I mentioned before, there's such a value that goes beyond money. So I feel like I don't really feel like I'm giving up that much for them, because it's so important to me to be doing this, and I feel like I feel like other people, like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything special.
The mission of For Boston says that action without reflection risks despair, and reflection without action risks irrelevance. And it is their explicit hope that For Boston students will grow intellectually, morally, and spiritually through regular service to others and through disciplined reflection. At Jackson Man, the volunteers and their work exemplify that mission as they teach for others.
For me, For Boston is the opportunity to get out and experience our city and the people that live in our city, and to learn from the city and the people, and to give what little I can back to them.
A lot of people think, oh, they don't speak English, so people think, you know, they're not very smart. But, you know, like Tony in the class is like a space engineer. It's just, it makes you realize that these aren't just like, you know, people, like just, you know, disenfranchised people, or, you know, like disadvantaged people. These people are incredibly intelligent people that, you know, don't speak English very well, you know, are learning to speak English. It just really humanizes, you know, everybody.
I don't think the education does the trick on its own, in the books, in the papers, in the videos, in the discussions, in the speakers. I think you have to break down that academic bubble, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you have to break that down and engage ideas. If there's a problem you see, stand up yourself, issue yourself a personal challenge to change that in your own life. It's not going to revolutionize the world. It's not. But we all exist as individuals as a part of this larger community. And before we change the larger society, we have to learn how to change ourselves.
And I think that in college, to be honest, we have a lot of commitments that are academic, but beyond that, college kids don't tend to have a lot of commitments. We're not responsible or accountable to a lot of people, and I think that it's an important lesson to learn what it means to commit to a population, to be accountable to them, and to really take pride in serving them.
Destination of this train is